I'm going to keep this straightforward because I know a lot of you are sitting there wondering whether the Skutt KM 1027LL Kiln Plus Shelf Kit is worth the space it takes in a modest studio, or if you'll end up with a machine that looks great on paper but leaves you frustrated on the bench. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What you'll hear today is the kind of down-to-earth perspective I gathered after reading through the handful of reviews that actually exist, watching a few long-form fire logs on YouTube, and talking to a couple of studio owners who've already put this unit through a full firing cycle. My goal is to help you decide if this particular kiln fits the way you work, rather than just reciting a spec sheet. First, let's talk about the hesitation most people feel before buying a kiln. The biggest fear is spending a few $100s on a unit that either won't fit in your workspace or won't handle the size of the pieces you make. There's also the worry that you'll end up with a kiln that's too simple, no programmable ramps, no easy way to monitor the fire, and that you'll be stuck doing guesswork. On the flip side, buying something too big or too fancy can balloon your electricity bill and add a lot of unnecessary complexity. The Skutt KM 1027LL tries to strike a middle ground, a compact, 10-inch interior chamber paired with a matching shelf that slides in and out on low-friction rails. That combination means you're not hunting for a separate shelf that fits perfectly. You get a kit that's designed to work together right out of the box. Who should consider this kiln? If you're a hobbyist or a small-scale studio that primarily works with stoneware or mid-range ceramics, and you usually fire pieces no larger than a standard mug or a small bowl, this size is a sweet spot. The interior height of roughly 7 inches gives you enough vertical clearance to stack a couple of rows of items on the included shelf, which is handy when you're trying to get the most out of a single load. The control panel is deliberately simple, a single knob for temperature set point and a basic digital readout that tells you where you are in the cycle. For someone who wants to fire a bisque run, then a glaze run, without having to program a complex curve, that simplicity can actually save time. The kit also comes with a sturdy, insulated door that seals reasonably well, so you won't notice a big heat loss during a 2-hour glaze fire. Now, who might want to look elsewhere? If your production schedule relies on firing large platters, sculptural pieces that need more than 10 inches of interior width, or you need multiple shelves to separate bisque and glaze layers, you'll quickly feel the constraints. The chamber is also a single-door design with a fixed opening, so loading a tall piece is a bit of a choreography. And if you're after a kiln that talks to your computer, lets you save custom firing schedules, or has a built-in thermocouple with external logging capability, the KM 1027LL doesn't provide that out of the box. It's more of a plug-and-fire solution than a programmable workhorse. Let's dig into the practical strengths that people have actually noticed in real studio settings. The first thing that stands out is the way the shelf rails sit on the floor of the chamber. Unlike some budget kilns where the shelf can wobble as the temperature changes, the Skutt's low-friction tracks keep the shelf level even when the heat expands the metal. I saw a video where a potter loaded a dozen small mugs, ran a typical stoneware glaze fire, and pulled the shelf out after the cycle with the items still perfectly aligned, no shifting, no broken glaze spots. That kind of reliability matters when you're trying to keep a consistent finish across a batch. Another everyday win is the heating element placement. The element runs the full length of the chamber rather than being tucked at the top or bottom. In practice, that means the heat distributes more evenly, which reduces the hotspot issues you sometimes see in cheaper kilns. A reviewer mentioned that their glaze came out even across the whole piece, and that's a direct result of that element layout. For a studio that does a lot of glaze work, that consistency can translate into fewer refires and less wasted glaze. Energy consumption is another hidden value point. The kiln draws roughly 2,400 watts at peak, which is modest for a 10-inch chamber. In a home studio where electricity costs matter, the fact that the unit cycles off the element once it reaches the set temperature helps keep the bill from spiraling during a long glaze fire. It's not a solar-powered miracle, but it's reasonable for the size. On the flip side, there are practical weaknesses that become apparent after you've used the kiln for a few weeks. The door latch, while sturdy, can be a little stiff when the kiln is hot. One user noted that after a prolonged glaze fire, the